Fall is finally here. I don't know about you, but this is one of my favorite seasons of the entire year, and I am so excited to bring out all the fall decorations and activities for my own little ones. So today on the show, I am sharing my 5 favorite themes that you can do with your little ones during the fall season. Hey there, Mama. I'm Lauren Brainerd, and this is Teach Your Littles at Home. I'm so excited you have tuned in as I share fun and hands-on activities you can use right away to help you play and learn with your little ones. So let's dive right into today's episode so you can make more memories than you ever dreamed of. Our first theme I always do to kick off the season is an apple theme. There is just something about apples that just takes me back to my childhood, shopping for apples every fall with my own mom. We used to go to an apple farm and we would bob for apples, pick apples, taste apples, lots of other fall farm activities. To this day, my mom still likes to make caramel apples every fall, so there's just something about apples that makes it feel like fall. So my favorite way to kick off the fall season and start our new apple theme is by shopping for apples. I take my kids to the grocery store, and if they have those little shopping carts, I let them push them. Otherwise, we carry baskets, and I let my kids buy one of every kind of apple that they can find. Then we bring our apples home and we compare and contrast the type of apples that we bought. We talk about the differences in the shapes, the sizes, and the colors. Then we do an apple washing station. What I do is I set out 3 different buckets. One has just plain clean water, then another one with water, and a dry basin with a dry towel. And what they'll do is they'll take a washcloth and scrub in the first bin of water. Then they drip it in the second one to make sure they got all the dirt off, and then they put it in their drying bin. And this way we get really clean apples for our next activity. Now that our apples are completely clean, it's time to taste the apples. And what I do is I have my kids watch me slice the apples, and we slice right down the middle. We'll open it up, we'll look inside the apple, and we'll talk about the different parts of the apple. The flesh, the skin, the seeds, the core, and we'll compare even the way that the apples can look slightly different based on their shapes and their textures and things like that. Then comes the best part. It's snack time. We taste all of our apples and we talk about what's the same, what's different, which ones are the sweetest, what is the most sour, which one has the softest flesh, which one is crispier. It's a great way to just get your kids to realize that an apple is not just an apple. There are so many different varieties of apples that can appeal to all of our senses through taste, the touch, as we're feeling them, our sense of smell, our sense of sight, what they look like. All of our senses get engaged when you're tasting an apple. When we finish our snack, my favorite thing to do next is to make an apple pie out of Play-Doh. So what I do is I give my kids a couple containers of Play-Doh. I always have red and green, yellow, a really light brown. Sometimes I even make my own Play-Doh, and I let them take the dough and they form it into an actual pie pan. So they're going to first spread the dough all the way around. They're going to use their little fingers to first roll out the dough with a rolling pin, just like you would a real pie dough. And then they're going to set that in the bottom circle inside the pan. Then they're going to take a long rectangular strip of dough and press it in with their fingers, again, just like we're making a real apple pie. When they finish this, they'll get to use a little plastic knife or a Play-Doh tool knife to cut out little apple shapes, and they'll lay those inside. And when we finish that, then we make strips, and we actually weave them together into the shape of an apple pie. Now, this can turn out so many different ways, but the best part is your kids are improving their fine motor skills and they don't even know it. They will be having so much fun with mom that they won't even realize that the main goal of this activity was to build their fine motor skills. Now, sadly, because this is a Play-Doh pie, we don't get to taste it. But that's okay. If your kids really want to know what an apple pie tastes like, you can always grab one at the grocery store and enjoy it sometime this fall season. The 5th activity I'm sharing with you about apples is apple stamping using a liquid paint. So what you'll do is just squirt some paint onto a paper plate and then give your kids a big sheet of construction paper. Then what you're going to do is give them apples that have been sliced a couple different ways. So first, you'll cut an apple straight down the middle so that it's in 2 halves. And they'll dip that entire half an apple on the flat side in their paint and stamp it onto their paper to make apples. You can also make an apple into 4 quarters, so they can have a quarter of an apple stamp, and then you can do some really skinny slices and they could try that too. Let it dry, and then it's really fun if you give them a little marker or crayon for them to go and draw stems and leaves onto all of their stamped apples. The second theme I'm sharing today is our pumpkin theme. So I always kick off our pumpkin week by going to a pumpkin patch. Take lots of pictures, take your time, walk through the patch, talk about what you see, feel all the textures of all the different pumpkins. You can have so much fun doing a math activity right at the pumpkin patch by walking through and asking your kids to sort pumpkins either by their size, their shape, or even their color right there at the patch. Once they've sorted, you're going to need to buy 2 pumpkins that you can take home for the activities you're going to be doing for this theme. After our car ride home from the pumpkin patch, my kids are always a little bit wiggly. We just had so much fun at the patch, and then we sat in the car, and now it's time to move our bodies around. So I love to start our activity at home with pumpkin bowling to take a gross motor wiggle break. So what you will do is set out 4 rows of cups. So in the back row, you're going to have 4 cups. And then in the next row forward, you'll have 3, 2, and then 1. So once you've set up all of your cups into the shape of a triangle, what you will have your child do is grab a small pumpkin and roll it to try to knock all of these cups out of a circle. So I forgot to mention that I actually will draw a chalk circle around the cups because since they don't tip over the same way that a bowling pin would, I just have them try to knock them out of the circle. And that's how we determine if they're successful with hitting the cups or not. The next activity we do is we carve the top out of our pumpkin. Now you are going to get 2 activities out of this one pumpkin. The first thing you're going to do is cut around that top and then let your kids actually be the ones to grab the stem and pull it out. It's always so much fun when you first pull the top out because you see all the guts and pumpkin seeds and everything kind of hanging off of it. And it's always just a fun experience for kids if they've never done this before. Once you've taken the top off, you are going to have your kids reach into that pumpkin. Some are going to get really excited. Some might be a little timid to get their hands into the gooey mess, so help as much as you need to. But you're going to sort those pumpkin guts by seeds, pulp, and flesh. So I always just make a quick little chart. I have one you can print in one of my units, but you could easily make this yourself as well. And just write seeds, pulp, and flesh. And then as your kids pull them out, you'll just show them this word is seeds. We're going to drop our seeds here. The same for the pulp and the same for the flesh. Now, the flesh can be pretty tricky to get out with your fingers, so that's where I give my kids a spoon and I just let them start to carve that out of the pumpkin. When you finish sorting as much as you want to sort for the day, you're going to create a sensory bin. Now, this is probably the messiest sensory bin that I've ever done to date with my kids. So what I would suggest is doing it outside, and I put a giant towel down on the floor, and then I set a bin right in the middle of it, and I put all of those pumpkin seeds, pulp, the flesh, the top of the pumpkin, all of it just right inside that bin. And I let my kids just dig in. Now, my son was all about this. He was so excited. He squeezed it, he squished it, he watched it come out of his fingers, had so much fun. My daughter, a little more timid, wasn't quite excited about the mess on her hands, but that's the beauty of a sensory bin. For him, he just got his hands in. I think at one point his foot might have made it in because he was only 2 years old. But my daughter, we did this when she was a little older, and she had a lot more fun using a fork and spoon and working it around and making pumpkin soup out of her sensory bin. That's the beauty of a sensory bin. There's no right or wrong way to use it. Our 5th pumpkin activity is decorating a pumpkin. So for this activity, you'll need your second pumpkin that hasn't been cut into, and you're going to give your kids a whole bunch of different craft supplies. So I'm talking liquid glue, glitter, sequins, feathers, anything you can dig out of those dark corners of your craft closet is perfect for this. I love to just decorate pumpkins without carving them for preschoolers because one, they don't get moldy as fast, so they last a lot longer. And I don't know about your kids, but anytime we've done a jack-o'-lantern and seen it get moldy, there's always been tears when we have to throw them out. But so I found that by decorating a pumpkin, it just lasts a lot longer. I don't have to worry about knife safety or any of that. They just get to have fun and decorate their pumpkins. Let their creativity shine here. Don't give any guidelines on what the pumpkin has to look like or how many eyes it has to have. Just let them have fun. I always say, give your jack-o'-lantern a face, you can give it hair, but be creative. Our third theme in the fall season is spiders. Now, all of the spider activities we do are fun and nothing is ever scary. I personally have always had a little fear of spiders, but I put this aside and we learn about this wonderful creature that lives in our world. My favorite way to kick off our spider theme is with a life-size spider web so that my kids can experience what it feels like to be a spider inside of a web. So what you are going to do is grab some white streamers, just whatever you grab at the party store, just a big roll of streamers. And you are going to create this spider web inside your home. So what I do is just lay out a few different chairs, kind of all like in a zigzag pattern across the living room. And then I just go crazy with the streamers, back and forth, all directions. And it turns into the most fun maze for your little one to run through. Make sure to stand on the opposite end that your child is running through because it makes for the sweetest picture as they're trying to break through all of those spider webs. When we finish our spider web streamers, I love moving straight to a sensory bin because we got all our wiggles out, we got excited, and this helps bring down that excitement as we dive into a fine motor sensory bin. So to set up this sensory bin, you are going to place pipe cleaners, googly eyes, and Play-Doh in a bin. Now you'll want to cut the pipe cleaners into about 1-inch pieces, and your children are going to use all of these materials to create their own spiders. Let their imaginations take over. Talk about the body parts a spider has, but let your children use their creativity without any instruction from you on exactly what a spider should look like. And then let your children use these materials to create their spiders. Our fourth activity for spiders is our clothespin spider. So what you will do is cut a big black circle out and then add 2 small white eyes in the middle of your circle. Then your children are going to use 8 clothespins and clip them around the body to make the legs of a spider. This is great for counting to 8, and it's also excellent fine motor skill practice because not only are they having to grip the clothespin, squeeze it to open it, but they're also having to have enough control in their hands and fingers to get the clothespin to land right in the spot they're trying to clip. If you can find a bag of jumping spiders at the Dollar Tree or whatever your local craft store is, these are so much fun. So I love doing jumping spider races, and this is great for their fine motor finger control because what they'll do is push down on the back of the spider and it'll jump forward. Sometimes it'll just flip over, sometimes it'll go backwards. But the more control they have of that little lever they're pushing on, the further they're going to get their jumping spider to go. And what you can do is turn it into a race where you and your child are going to be trying to make your spider jump the furthest or try to reach a certain line or whatever the designated area is to see who can make the spider jump the furthest. You can also paint with these spiders by just dipping the spiders in paint and stamping it on a paper. Our fourth theme is a Halloween theme, and I love to break this one out the very last week of October, kind of leading up to Halloween, so we can go through some fun activities at the end of the month. Now, if you don't celebrate Halloween, that's okay. You can still do a lot of these activities and just not say that they're Halloween and talk about how they're fall activities. A really fun arts and craft activity is a cotton ball ghost. So what you do first is draw the shape of a ghost on a piece of paper, and then you're going to have your kids use cotton balls to stretch that ball in different directions and paste it inside that designated area that you've drawn. Now, again, if you don't celebrate Halloween, you could do the same concept, but draw the clouds in the sky. So you could go outside and look at the clouds and then come inside, draw a cloud and stretch out your cotton ball to make that shape of a cloud. Same concept. but it's great for your kids to learn how to stretch the ball, how to have that finger control so they don't pull too hard, and then paste it onto a paper using liquid glue. I always use the phrase ... not a lot, and that way my kids will only put just a little bit of liquid glue on their paper and they don't go crazy squirting it all over the paper and causing it to rip during the activity. The second activity I love to do is building a jack-o'-lantern out of shapes. So what you'll do is print out a big pumpkin on a piece of paper, and then your kids will use black shape pieces. So you can have triangles, you could even use some circles, rectangles, squares, and have your kids paste them together to make their jack-o'-lantern smile or have a silly face or whatever they want to do to make their jack-o'-lantern their own. The third activity I love doing for Halloween is a googly eye sensory bag. So what you'll do for this one is fill a bag with water, add a few drops of green food coloring, and then throw a bunch of googly eyes inside the bag. Then you're going to need to tape up the top of the bag with duct tape. You do this to make sure that your kids don't push so hard on the bag or open the top and have your green water all over the area you're working in. So duct tape the top and then use masking tape to tape it down onto the table. Then your kids are just going to use their little fingers to move around the googly eyes and have fun with that sensory experience. Next, it's time for our costume fashion show. Now, you can use whatever costumes you have on hand. Please do not go out to the store and buy a bunch of costumes so that you can feel like your kids have the opportunity to put on this fashion show. There's so many things you already have on hand. Paper bag costumes are one of my favorites, and the best part is your kids get to design them. So you'll actually turn the bag upside down, cut a circle out of the top that would fit over your child's head, and then cut 2 circles out of the sides for arms. So if you can picture, just your kid is wearing the paper bag upside down. Then give your kids lots of art supplies and let them decorate their costumes. The fifth activity that I love doing is decorating a treat box for trick-or-treaters if we aren't going to be home to pass out the candy. So what you'll do is either give your kids a box or just a large piece of construction paper, and they can use real objects to stamp things. They can put on stickers, they can color pictures, whatever they want to do. And then I always just write a little saying on the front, letting trick-or-treaters know to take a piece of candy. The final theme I'm sharing for the fall season on today's episode is turkeys. And this one is so much fun to do in the month of November. And I love to start the unit by having a pretend turkey dinner. I love doing this because it is a great way to practice manners before I ask my kids to sit down at a family dinner and be expected to use utensils. So what I do is actually print out or find real kitchen set items to set out an entire turkey dinner. So we have a turkey, we have corn, mashed potatoes, stuffing, green beans, whatever you typically have on your family's turkey dinner table. And then what I do is I have my kids actually learn how to pretend to use a spoon to serve themselves and then use their utensils correctly as they pretend to eat the food. Not only is this great for practicing how to use our manners, but it's also great for using new vocabulary. So have your kids actually say all of the words, have them ask proper questions when they would like something. But any opportunity to get your kids to learn new vocabulary is really important at this age. I don't know what it is about November, but we always seem to have an extra bag of candy corn laying around after Halloween. So I love to use these candy corn as feathers and place them in little brown balls of Play-Doh to create a turkey. So I put everything in a sensory bin, just a big chunk of brown Play-Doh. I'll put the candy corn in. You can also include feathers and then have your kids use all of those materials to make their own turkeys. You might also want to include the really mini googly eyes, and your kids can put those on as turkey eyes as well. I always love to bring a fun grandparents gift over on Thanksgiving. So this year we are going to be making handprint turkeys. So what you'll do first is trace around your child's hand, all of their fingers down their arm just a little bit so you get their wrist in it as well, and cut out 4 hands, so 2 of each, on different colors. Then you're going to have your kids paint a paper plate brown. Let it dry. add 2 big googly eyes into the center of the plate, and then cut out a beak and the snood, which is that little dangling part under their beak, and have your kids paste that onto the plate. Then what you're going to do is take those 4 hands that your kids have and paste it onto the back side of the plate to create all those beautiful feathers behind their plate. The last activity I'm sharing today is one that is going to work on scissor skills. So it is really important that you are right there with your child if they don't have much experience with scissors to guide them in holding their scissors properly. So I always like to say thumbs up when we cut, and your kids will have their thumbs in one hole of the scissors at the top and their other fingers down below in the other part of their scissors. So as they open and close their scissor, their thumb is always up. That's the finger with the blade as it points up. Their thumb is up on the scissors. This is important because it prevents your child from turning their scissors sideways and having the paper and the blade just kind of get stuck because it won't cut properly on the paper. So what they're going to be doing is cutting out feathers from construction paper. So what you'll do is just cut out a piece of paper in the shape of one big feather. Then you're going to draw a line straight down the middle and then some small lines that go from that center line to the edge of the feather. You'll put maybe 3 or 4 on each side of the feather, and then you'll help guide your child in where to hold the feather as they cut. And they're just going to cut the small lines up to that center line so that it gives their feathers a little bit of movement. Be careful when you're drawing those lines that you kind of alternate where you're drawing. Otherwise, when they cut one side and the other, they can end up chopping their feather in half as opposed to just giving it some movement. I hope you are feeling inspired to dive right into learning this fall season with your little ones at home. I will go ahead and drop some of my favorite blog posts in the show notes so that you can take a closer look at each of these themes and find even more fun activities you can do at home with your little ones. Next week, we are kicking off our 4-part series on sensory bins. So I hope you'll join us for that. And I can't wait to chat with you further this week inside our Teach Your Littles at Home Facebook community. So if you haven't already joined, make sure to click the link in the show notes to join all the fun and chat with us about what you're doing in your homes this week. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Teach Your Littles at Home. I hope you are feeling so inspired to create a new activity to do right away with your little ones.
If you like listening to my mommy, will you please leave her a review?
Before you head off to plan the next activity, would you mind leaving me a quick review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you are listening from? This is the only way for me to know if you're finding my tips, activities, and advice helpful, and I get so excited reading each and every review. I hope this episode has left you feeling empowered to try something new with your kids this week. And if so, would you please hit the share button and share this episode with another one of your mama friends who also wants to create activities with her little ones. I can't wait to share even more fun activities with you on our next episode. Have a wonderful rest of your day playing and making memories with your little ones.